Hi, and welcome to the SelectedTech podcast, brought to you by a group of 4 MVPs doing webinars, sessions, and interviews on all things SharePoint, Office 365, and the Microsoft AI ecosystem. Their motto is learn, share, reuse. And here they are, Albert Jan, Rick, Stefan, and Tommy.
Hi, and welcome at episode 28 of the SelectedTech webinar series. Tonight, we're going to talk about authentication scenarios for M365 developers. We all know authentication is hard, so Rick is going to shed some light on some of the basics. So we're going to talk about Azure Active Directory app registrations, some key vaults, some managed identity, and some awesome demos with samples on how to set things up. Rick, take it away.
Thank you. Okay, let's get started. Now, let me close this one. You don't need this one. Now, I think, let me put my code a little bit bigger. I think the easiest part, or the one you most see, is if you use, we all know you have delegate permissions and you have application permissions. So delegate permissions, you use a user. It used to be username and password. These days, it's username and password and a client ID. And then you have application permissions, which is a application ID and a secret, or client ID, a client secret. Yeah, you have multiple names depending on which resource or which blog post you read. That changes names frequently. So I think this is the most common example that you find everywhere to get authenticated. So you use a client ID and a client secret. You do this is with authority. This means I need to log in. If you see this, this is my tenant ID, so the ID of my tenant. And I'm just going to go to the graph. I'm just going to go to acquire token, and I'm just going to get, what's this, get me all my users. So normal stuff, nothing fancy. So if I put my breakpoint here, let's hit the start button. Maybe I should debug. Let's see if I can put an auto breakpoint here. There we go. Is it building? Yep, there we go. Immediately diving into the code. So my client ID, my client secret, yeah, you can copy it. I'll refresh it anyway. So we get our token. As you can see, we're hitting Azure AD and we get our token back, and somewhere there should be an access token, which is then a JWT token, which is then allowing me to get all the users in my tenant. And if I look at it, I'll probably get a lot of, it's my test, it's my own tenant. So it's like Rick should be in there, and some, Albert Jan is also there, and who else is there? Yeah, a lot of names. So I got access to my users. Nothing fancy, nothing special. We all know how that works. So we go to Azure AD, we do a application registration. This one was with the client ID and the secret. So where's my app registrations? I think I always reuse my app registrations, which is not the best practice, but well, it's a test tenant, so nobody cares. I use this cross poster. It's not a cross dresser, guys. It's a cross poster. It's from something I tested. So we have don't mind certificates. That's for later on. We have I created an additional key here. You see it 874. And then that should be the same if I go look at my code, 874. Okay, perfect. And then I gave it some API permissions, of course, and I clicked the ground button. I think I have a few here, some SharePoint stuff, some graph stuff, a little bit of key vault stuff. So application permission, user.read all. Now, what's the problem with this? Security, of course, because this key, it works from everywhere. If you now copy this screenshot, you take a screenshot, it's gonna be on our YouTube channel. You take a screenshot of it and you can access my tenant. So, mistake, Rick. Yeah, we have a breach, and now everybody can access my users or whatever I put in Azure. If you're a little bit of a lazy developer like I am, then not only can you access all my users, but you can also access all my sites, and you can access all my channel messages. So not a good thing to do. So what's the most common practice, of course, to fix that is that we use managed identity. So a managed identity, you have two types of managed identities. Okay, couldn't find my word. I do recommend you read up on it, but you have something called a system assigned managed identity and a user assigned managed identity. So a managed identity, what is it? It's a service principal. Now, another hard word is, of course, service principal. Let's close this one. It's this one. So a service principal is it's like an app registration. It's an app registration is a service principal. Service principal is not an app registration. So it's a basic app. Just compare it to an app registration. Now, like I said, you have system assigned and user assigned. So user assigned is like you create an app registration like a user. It becomes an identity in your tenant, and you can use it on multiple resources. You can use it for virtual machines. You can use it for apps, web apps, for multiple resources. A system assigned identity is a little bit different. You can you activate it on a single resource. So I have this Azure web app here. If it loads, normal, basic, create a new web app, new app service. And if you go to identity, there's an identity blade here. If you go to identity, you can turn this on, and then it asks you, do you want to use a user assigned? So you can create one, or already an active one, you reuse that one. So you can have one managed identity for your entire tenant. I don't recommend that because that doesn't solve anything. But you can just say, I want a system assigned. So you just turn this on and you get an object ID, meaning this will all get created for you in your as a service principal in your an app registration. You don't see it between your app registrations, but it's there. You can see it in the enterprise applications tab. Weird thing about this one even is I have several customers where I'm not allowed to create app registrations, but I am allowed. So I don't have any access to Active Directory. I do have my subscription in Azure, of course, where I'm the owner. I can create a managed identity. So that's okay. It doesn't have any permissions yet because it's an empty app registration. Compare it with that. There's no permissions on it. So I get my app registration. In this case, it says object ID. It's like, if you look at the app registration, they also have an object ID and then a client ID. This is the object ID of this app registration service principal. So now that I have this, I can start using it. Now, the cool thing about managed identity is the framework. You can build everything yourself, but of course, there's an SDK for it. I'm going to show you the .NET SDKs. There's several SDKs. It takes everything away from you. It's actually just 2 lines of code. If I this one, if I uncomment this, as you can see here, it's just these 2 simple. I actually did just these 2 simple lines of code. Yeah, it's okay. I put an enter there. It's like okay. Let me. There you go. 2 lines of code. Now, what does this code do? It works with environment variables, and it sets headers on requests. And if you dive into it, it's actually pretty clever. But so what does it do? This Azure Service Token Provider, it figures out, hey, am I running this code in Azure? Am I running this code not in Azure from a development machine? Am I running this code inside of a Visual Studio? Depending on where you run it, it will figure out where it's running. It will also, there's some environment variables you can set and stuff like that. But if you don't do anything, it will be smart enough to figure out, hey, I'm running in Visual Studio, and look, I'm signed in as Rick. So it will just take my account, and it will go to my, of course, Active Directory and get the permission I have. So if I just run this from here, then it will be smart. In this case, I go to SharePoint. Why do I go to SharePoint? Because it's easier. I can just take my user account and get my user account name. If I do that with the graph, then of course later on I will get errors because a managed identity, it's not a real user. In SharePoint, the managed identity is converted to, I'll keep that as a secret for later on. You'll probably know the user. Everybody knows that user. So in this case, I just click play. And then if it starts running, do something. Come on, connect. There we go. Loading. So it connected to so this all went well. I just ran the 2 lines of code. I didn't give any password. I didn't have to log in, nothing. As you can see here, I already have an access token. So it was smart enough to figure out who I was because I'm logged in here. So as you can see here, this is even my Outlook.com account. So my Outlook.com account, of course, also has access to my tenant. I put this as a bearer token, and my account name is, as you can see here, it takes my, I'm logged in probably with Visual Studio with a few accounts. So it takes my test tenant or my own tenant as a account. So I'm running this under my credentials, which is cool because let's say I'm a developer. I need what happens these days a lot with Office 365. Remember the old days when we had like development and test and acceptance and production, and yeah, that all fades away. We still try to do that, but it's very hard these days. Why? Because try to keep tenants in sync with data and all that stuff. It's not that simple. So let's say I'm a developer. I'm developing something against my own site collection, and in another site collection, that's the thing I have to access, but I don't have access to that. I can just write code, do everything to my own site collection on the same tenant, and then once, for instance, one site collection, and once it runs in Azure, it then gets the credential, the managed identity, and if we give the managed identity application permissions on the entire tenant, it can do its thing on the entire tenant. So this is running on me. Now, how do I give that application managed identity service principal? Oh, lots of difficult words. How do I give that access? Well, if you want to search for it, it's here. That's the hard thing about it, the managed identity. There's no UI. There's no portal that allows you to configure everything. Last time I checked, because yeah, it's not between in-app registrations. So if let me go back. I needed that ID. Let me go quickly few steps back. There we go. No, this is my Active Directory. One more. I just needed the ID. Identity. Yep. Let's take this object ID. Let's go to my app registrations. There we go. And if I click here, see, nothing. View all applications, nothing. So there's no ID. Doesn't exist here. If I go to enterprise applications, there you can filter on if you go to application type, managed identities, then if I filter, as you can see here, it does show up here. So you can find it. See, this is the object ID 809 and application ID as well. If I click on it, I can access it. I can see the permissions. Maybe I can set it here. Did they change it? Nah, admin consent. See, I can review the permissions. I can grant consent, but I cannot add them. See, there's no way I can add them. So you do need PowerShell or the CLI, the Azure CLI or something to set some stuff, especially the API permissions. So how do we set that? Well, pretty simple. Every API inside of Azure Office 365 has an ID. Our own, so our own app registrations, but the Microsoft Graph, SharePoint, Exchange, they also all have an ID. Microsoft cannot circumvent its own rules, and it sets its own rules. It says everything has to get a service principal or an ID. Of course, Microsoft has to do that as well. So as you can see here, I think this one is from the Graph. So, okay, it's a very cool ID. We're never going to get such a cool GUID like 000003. And I think the SharePoint one is also a pretty cool one. So, but these you can find. These are in every tenant the same. Why? Because there's only one Microsoft Graph, there's only one SharePoint, there's only one Exchange. So that's always the same. So we need to get that service principal. It's also service principal. Also an app registration. It doesn't show up, of course. So we need to get that one. As you can see here, I can get that one. I'm already connected. And I do have my caps lock on. Yep. As you can see here, app ID, display name, Microsoft Graph. So then let's say I want to give my managed identity group.read.all. So I want to do something with groups. Get all groups. Okay. If I do it from Visual Studio, I get all groups where I have access to. If I want to do it online, managed identity, group.read.all, application permission, I can do everything. So group read permissions, let me see if I can. So we're just gonna say, okay, the graph has several app roles, of course. The thing you click in the UI, it's this one that you click in the UI. Where do we go? App registration. And then you click on API. Let's take just whatever. Let's take one here, API permissions. Oh, that was too fast. Registrations. Take one, API permissions. So this thing, what you do here in the UI, so add a permission, all this stuff, of course, that also can be done within PowerShell, within the CLI, it doesn't matter. So those are my app roles. So if I go to graph.app roles, let me get those. As you can see here, it's a lot. So we have a calendar.readWrite and what's all here. chat member.read write all, everything's in there. So we want the group.read all. So we selected that one. And now I have that one. And that means, so I have the correct permission from the graph. Now I just need to figure out how to get that to my managed identity. So I'll get my managed identity. And here I need it. Do I still have that one? No. Okay. I can't swear, right? Sorry. Do I have to go back all the way back? Oh, stupid Azure.
So many options.
Yeah, all the clicking in, and this is wrong.
No swearing.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Too many. I've been too long in this today.
I would love to say we will get like hundreds of comments complaining because you swear too much, but we don't get any comments at all. So
people like it. So if I do this, then I can get my managed identity. So if I search for, I'm just gonna do it like this. So it's like this. So this is my managed identity. See, this is the website or the web app I created. So man identity, and now we just have to link stuff together. Just one command. So Azure AD service app role assignment. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna do my group read permissions. I'm gonna link those to my managed identity with the principal ID, managed identity, and with the resource graph, so that everything is linked up. So we just execute this one and it's good to go. I already executed this one. Special thing, so if you do this the first time, it works instantly. If you want to change something or you update something, so I do group.read.all, that's okay, that works. If I then add user.read.all, I have to wait 24 hours. So, which is, so it's weird that it doesn't, the second time it takes 24 hours to update, so, or maximum 24 hours, but it takes a while. So now that we have this managed identity.
One remark for M365 developers is that you can use the CLI for Microsoft 365, and then those 14 lines you see here is just a single line where you can
even better.
Put everything together. So no fiddling, figuring out what the ID of the group read permission stuff is, just specifying the scope, specifying the app, and specifying the resource, and then you're good.
And then you execute all this stuff for that. Ah, cool. Yeah. Even better. And then now I lost track. Oh yeah, okay. So now we have configured our managed identity. Then we just say let's run this in Azure. I already deployed it, so let's not deploy it again. Wrong one. This one. Where is it? Managed identity. So I have a web job here. I already deployed it, already ran it. So let's just run it again. Nothing fancy. As you can see, it runs, and as you can see here, it connects, and it connects with a cool account name, which is app@SharePoint. So as you can see here, okay, I also gave it SharePoint permissions. This is the ID of SharePoint. So the app registration of SharePoint, yeah, the managed identity, whatever you call it, the service principal of SharePoint. And here we're just logged in. So yeah, I now have access to everything in SharePoint. If I run it from Azure, if I don't run it from Azure, then it's my own permissions. Okay, all cool, all nice. Problem is, not everything runs on Azure. I would love to say it does, but it doesn't. Not all customers, not every company, not everybody is running already everything in Azure. You need to, because this is also a pain in the ass if you have an issue, because there is no way to get that managed. So the managed identity, what does it do? It actually at the lowest level, it just creates an app registration, which we just saw, and it creates a certificate. But that certificate is in Azure. You can never get that certificate out. Believe me, I tried. You can never get it out. It's there and it's hidden. So yeah, if you now have an issue, except for adding more logs to your application, there's no way to figure it out. And of course, there's also other stuff like, okay, if you're running on-prem or something, that's also not simple. So next thing we can do is make it even harder, different approach. We can use a client secret again. So let's just use a client secret again. But this time, instead of using giving the client secret to our developer, emailing it, putting it on Teams, whatever, just giving it to somebody. We can put that in Key Vault, meaning I go to Key Vault. So if you haven't been to Key Vault, you just create a Key Vault. Azure Key Vault, you have this secrets tab here, and you can just add a new secret. So I create my new app registration with a secret. So like we did in the beginning, I just give it, I don't know, secret, my cool app or something. And you copy the secret here and you say, okay, yes. Cool thing about this is you can say, okay, this user or this app, you can choose whatever you want, can access secrets. You can just read it. You cannot update it, meaning they can just only read it. Other thing is, somebody has to put it in there. So I created the secret key. So there's my secret. Let's click start. Now in this case, I'm gonna access the Key Vault with a what we call a technical account. I think everybody's used that already. So technical account, my username, my user, and after this, I have to reset the password as well. So this is a user, just a normal user. It's a password, and of course my tenant ID and a client ID, because modern authentication, you always need a client ID. It's the same client ID. So what did I do? I just activated, as you saw in the beginning, I activated access for that app, and together with the user to access my Key Vault. So in this case, it can access the Key Vault because there's the client ID. Why is this sometimes a good thing? Because some customers have, for instance, ADFS servers on premise, meaning, a user can, so this user, he can only authenticate from within the network because, it runs on premise. ADFS server is not accessible from the outside. So only users can only access the tenant if they're inside of the network, which is old school security, I know, but still, it's used heavily. So in this case, I have a functional user or technical user, whatever you call it, username, password. I go to my Key Vault. Oh, wait, I think I was too slow. Let's try that again.
And you need to change the password of your user after the recording anyways.
It's a test user, I don't think it doesn't access that much. So, but with this, it can access a lot, I guess. So we get our user. I just say, so new secret client. So go to your Key Vault and give those credentials, and it already gets my secret. So my secret was, I think, 8 something. What's the value? There we go, 874 and something. So we use that one. Same as before, authenticate to the graph and get all the users, and we're good to go. And all the users, nothing fancy, nothing special. Here are all my users again. Cool thing about this one is nobody needs to see the secret. So you can use automation or whatever to rotate the secret, or somebody else can do it. I know companies that, they have administration guys, and the only thing they do is go to this app registration, create new secret, and dump it somewhere else and send it to someone, and so they can access this one. Also, cool thing, I'm not sure. I just activated. It takes a while to activate, but there's also a pretty good logging in Key Vault. The problem also is if you have an E5 with Microsoft Cloud App Security and you know what you are doing, then it's possible to see if a client ID and the client secret accesses your tenant, when and from where and all that stuff. But of course, Microsoft Cloud App Security, E5 licenses and all the EMS 5 and whatever licenses, it's not that cheap to use. So not everybody can do this. I think it's still empty. The Key Vault can, if you add diagnostic logging, so if you just activated it, I think it just doesn't, takes a while to activate for me, but you can just say, hey, I want to activate all kind of audit events, meaning every time somebody accesses it, you can see it. So it's faster than Cloud App Security because that also needs to process stuff. So within a few minutes, you can also see, okay, this user accessed this key, this user accessed this key, this app accessed this key. This way you have a perfect trace of who does what. And if something is out of the ordinary, then then you can immediately either stop the secret from being accessed, block the user, block the app. That depends on what happens. So also pretty cool. I think I had a drawing of that. Yeah, see? The cool thing about this setup is so the application, it goes to Azure Active Directory with the user to authenticate. Azure Active Directory says, okay, you're cool, you're good, that user. With that user, you go to Key Vault. You say, okay, can I have my secret? Key Vault says, yes, you can. Then with that secret and the client ID, of course, that you already gave, you go to Azure AD again. Can I access that resource? Azure AD says, yeah, sure you can, because you have the secret and the key. And then, the ID and the key and the secret. And then you can just access your resource, meaning you can rotate your secrets on the fly. But even worse, actually, you cannot, Microsoft recommends not to use secrets. So let's not use secrets, let's use certificates. So in this case, I use a certificate. If you want the basic stuff, it's the same as a secret. It's just a file. Yeah, this time it's a file, but it's a more protected file than a secret. A secret is like, okay.
The secret is like a text string. So potentially, let's say I have a supercomputer, I could figure out that text string, and a certificate is slightly larger and more complex to generate on the fly.
Correct. But then again, in this case, you have to. So in this case, I do the same. So I, instead of getting the secret, I get a certificate. So I put a certificate in Azure. There we go. So it's this certificate, rotate key. So if it runs, should get the certificate. So, already. Wait, let me run it again. There we go. So again, all the users, as you can see here, this is actually the important part. So this is the certificate I found. So where is it? Does it have a name? Okay, I wrote it key, so I get the certificate. Now, this already gave it away. Key Vault generated. That's the cool thing about Key Vault. Instead of somebody doing manual, I think you can do it with secrets as well, but I do it with certificates. Instead of manually changing a secret to an app, you just need one command to say, okay, for this app registration, rotate the secret. So I think I put it here. Yeah. I use this one is with the I'm not sure if that's in the CLI already. If it's not, then I should add it.
Well, I'm not sure.
So if we go to, and that's the easiest part. So it works for the CLI, Microsoft 365 CLI, and the Azure CLI. So just click here, and then you're good to go. If it, give it a few minutes.
Takes a second to spin up, but
I normally use this one, but in this case it's easier if I do it here. So I just paste it here. So Azure AD, you have to connect, of course. This thing already connects. So app credential reset, you give the ID of your app registration. So this was this cross poster ID. Create a certificate, give the name of the key vault, and just take the same one. So if you can see, rotate key, it's now A799. So if I hit that again, should rotate, takes a while, because of course it's generating a new certificate, uploading the certificate, resetting the client, the app registration, all that stuff. And then if it rotates.
And the cool thing is that if you feel that there is something hacked or if there is a problem with your certificate, you can also revoke it. And then from that point, no one can use that application anymore, even though their accounts are still in place and intact and everything is fine.
Yep. See, this is now a new thumbprint. So new certificate, which already, and the cool thing is, you can run, if you run this command every day, Azure Automation, Logic App, whatever you want, every day you get a new certificate, and your code doesn't know anything. It just runs the time. When it runs, it downloads the certificate, uses that to authenticate. While it's running, it has an active barrier token. So it runs until it ends, and then the next time it gets a new certificate. So you can, by theory, and if you talk to the security guys, they love rotating keys, because the more you do it, the better it is.
Oh, well, now you're running your code with hard-coded credentials in there, but you could use the same managed identity and say, I've got a function running somewhere with managed identity, and that managed identity is only allowed to ping Key Vault and see if Key Vault has a valid secret or a valid certificate for you. And then if it has it, then just bring it over, do or run the code that you want to do. And you can do like proper serverless coding. And if you would ever be hacked, it will not be possible to get all your data, or only for a short amount of time, because you could even go as far as every time you run your code, it should rotate the keys once it is finished.
And then the only problem which we had was, if you have like a developer who logs your Berg token and puts the log somewhere public, that's a different story.
Let's don't go there. But for Key Vault, interesting use case that we do is when we do an installation. After that, I don't want to have the passwords or the credentials of the customers. So we create everything up in Key Vault, and when finished, we say, please change the thing now. So we, as soon as we are ready, we have no access to anything anymore, because I don't want to have it surprised me, to be honest, already 15 years ago when we got username and password to different companies. Nowadays, with everything in Azure, I don't want to have a admin account at all our customers. That shouldn't be the case. It should be, okay, it's your job to govern your security, and there shouldn't be even a possibility from our team to have access to your stuff unless you give us the permission for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, that's privileged identity management on steroids.
Yep. Yeah, it's like a self-defense mode. That's what I would call it. Like, okay, I because if there is something, we all know how it runs at companies. Okay, who's to blame? The one who isn't in the room, and that's the external consultant normally. So, and it shouldn't be not even technically possible that we do something with that.
On the other hand, I had a call last week. Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago. This admin guy, I'm also an admin on their tenant, so he called Rick. There's something wrong with my account. I can't get in. Can you reset my admin password, because everything is blocked and I cannot get in, and I'm not at the company now and something's going on. So I reset everything. It was like, I don't know, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock or something in the evening. So it was weird that he was still online and something. Yeah, he did something wrong, but didn't want to talk about it.
Cool, awesome scenario.
Yep. Cool stuff.
Yeah, it's if you get into it, it's but yeah, the managed identity I like the most, but it's too bad that it works only in Azure. If you have like mixed clouds with AWS or whatever, that doesn't work. So
cool. Then I guess that's it for tonight.
Yep. And I'll start resetting my username and password
right away.
Yeah, we'll do that. Should do that. Yep.
Cool.
Okay. See you guys. Next time.
See you.
Bye.
See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to check out the show notes at selectedtech.show to get all the mentioned references. And one more thing. Please tweet about the podcast and give them a 5-star review. This really helps the guys a lot. Thank you, and see you next time. Bye.